So to create a new quote, as you can see, it looks almost identical. It is identical to the way that we used to do the quoting within the PRC. So what we will do here is I'll just create a quote name. I'll just call it test. Quote expiry. You can then create your product type. You can then select your product types. You've got bundled, included calls, and pay as you go. So you can select those. It'll give you a description underneath, but ultimately, I'm going to go with bundled. You can also add, optionally, a comment here about the quote specifically. So if you've got multiple quotes, you might have a Teams quote, you might have a UCAS quote, you might have a quote with iCall Suite. You can then explain why you've done each of those quotes within here quickly with a few comments. So I'm going to create this quote, and where it'll start now is in the call flow design tool. So within the premium version, you get access to the call flow designer. So I am shortly going to create a call flow within this. But the cool thing about this product and what it allows you to do from a pre-sales perspective is to be able to sit down with the client, and instead of having to get all the requirements and build them all and put them on a piece of paper, drive back to the office or drive back home, build it in a Visio, then go from the Visio, look at all the SKUs that you need to grab all those SKUs, put them into a BOM, hope that you got them all right, then build a proposal. This tool does all of that for you, and it will allow you to ensure that once you've built the call flow design, it'll have the licensing, and then you can also have a proposal at the end. So let me just go through and build a really rudimentary one that I wouldn't recommend building, call flow, just to show the functionality and capability of the call flow itself. As an example, we're looking for the main site. You could look at this as a contact center, or you might have another site, or they're bringing in another business. But this will show the main call flow. So I'm going to select the time zone. So I'm in Melbourne. So I'll do. You can also put entry numbers on here and calling line ID. I'm not going to enter that information. But what that's good for is, as a visual for the client, it shows them, say, for example, that their number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 is coming into this call flow, and its caller line ID is also that, or it might be different caller line ID, but it allows you to say, for example, it's a 1300 number that then comes into a different number, which is an answer point. You can show that information on here, and for them, it's easier for them to get their head around and be able to understand the call flow at the start and then follow where it's going from there. For those of you who've used Visio or Draw.io or OmniGraffle for your Mac users, it comes up with a sort of call flow design aspect. So unlike Visio and those items, it is specifically built for our products. So it only has our products available in there, and you're able to pick them up and drag and drop them to the screen. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to drag and drop an IVR over. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I select the service pack, but after that, I'm going to add a sub IVR. So to start off with, I'll add the IVR. So this IVR, I'll just make sure that I've got the service pack, because that's important. And then what I'll do, just to show the ease of use, I'm going to create a sub IVR. So as you see, it allows me to select the fact that I've created a sub IVR. I can go in there and I can just change the options that I'm allowed to for a sub IVR. So the next thing I'm going to do is, this particular client wants the ability to have a sales contact center queue and a support contact center queue. So what I can do here is I can grab the call center queue, drag it and drop it on the sub IVR, because they want it under that menu, and I can open it up and I can rename it sales. So visually, for your client, they can see, okay, well, it goes through the first IVR, comes into the second IVR, and then number one puts it into sales. So for them visually, they can see that that's what that call flow is doing. The next thing I can do is I can add users from here. So as you see at the top, whilst this is not 100% absolutely important for a call flow design, it is really important for the next aspect when we move into provisioning, which is the next part. What that allows you to do is you can show the ring distribution policy. So you can have a circular ring distribution policy, you can have a regular ring distribution policy, simultaneous, so it rings on all phones at one, or a uniform, which is basically ringing the longest idle. So I'll just put 5 users in here for now. You can select the license that you need. So in this case, they're salespeople, so potentially it's worth allowing them to have a Collaborate Basic user, so they can have WebEx collaboration capabilities on their mobile phone. So while they're out and about, they can still take phone calls from this home group. Of course, we can add the service pack. You can add add-ons here. I'm not going to add any add-ons here at the moment, but you could add something like iCall Suite to it. You could add Go Integrator Kara to it. You could add the database integrator, any of those sort of add-ons that you want to add for these particular users so that they can have the functionality that the client requires, you can add them here. You can also add devices. So if your client needs these people to have a physical phone, you can add the physical phone as a device there, and it will also be catered for within the BOM. I'm not going to do that for now. So I'll save that. And what that does here is it adds those 5 Collaborate users to the sales queue. So now the client will like a support queue. I'll drag and drop the support queue. I'll click in, add support, add some users. So these particular users, we only want 3 of those. There's only 3 people on the support team. Again, we just want it to be circular. License, these guys aren't on the road as much, so we'll give them an executive user, so they just have to sit at their desk and take phone calls, whether that's via soft phone or not. Add-ons and devices, you can do the same thing here. You can add iCall Suite, add in the add-ons, and if they need a physical device, you can add a physical device there as well. And save that. And of course, as you see, it adds 3 executive users to that. Now, one thing we can also do, so say, for example, with the sales team, you might have some sales support. You might want to add extra users to that, then allows them to do that. So you can actually add more users here to that with different licensing as well. So if I go to executive user and click save. So that, of course, as you see, you've got 5 Collaborate basic users and 3 executive users for the SDRs that you've got in the team. Now, this particular client wants it that, sales team at times are unreliable answering the phone as sales. They want to have it overflow automatically to the support team. So what we can do here is we can hit the sales button, hit the overflow button. We can then, because we've already named it, we can hit the existing service. We can now select that existing service, which is support. If we want to, we can set an overflow timeout. So after 30 seconds, if none of the sales team answers the phone due to this on this queue, they want it to overflow to the support contact center. So we hit save, and visually that'll show that the overflow in 30 seconds timeout is then failing over to support. Now, whilst that's not 100% massively important for the quoting aspect, it'll be really important when we get to the provisioning phase, because that will be something that provisioning team doesn't need to configure because it's already ready to go. They may need to change it when they get into that stage, but initially you've got as much information as you can from the client to be able to build this call flow and hand it over to provision. Now, the other things we can add to support, you can add voicemail if we want to, so that they've got a voicemail add-on, so it ensures that they've got the voicemail license where required. We can do overflow with this support queue to somewhere else. We can do escape queue. We can do selective call forwarding. I'm not going to do any of that for the moment. So the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to add a hunt group. So I'm going to add a hunt group down here on this particular option. We've added the hunt group. So that's great. So I'll change the select, change to add a service pack. So now we're pretty much finished this quote. The client's pretty happy with what we've got there. So what we're going to look at is building the bill of materials. But before I do that, I'll just say the other thing you can do is you can drag and drop users from here onto the call flow. It is easier to go into the queue and edit the things yourself, so then you can add them all up and they go in. But you can drag and drop if you need to from here. I'm not going to do that for the moment.